One Piece has a lot of great story elements and also great story arcs. And while we cannot talk about all of them today, I want to reveal my top 5 arcs in One Piece to all of you today. There are great arcs even at the start of the story. Some honorable mentions include the Arlong Park, Baratier, even Loketown was great, and also while Skypiea didn't make it on this list, it's also one of my favorite arcs. So in the top 10, it for sure would be there. Now, without further ado, let's get into the 5th place that probably is the most controversial opinion here. In my opinion, Thriller Bark is the top 5 arc of One Piece. Now, you might think, Thriller Bark? But that's completely boring and it's so out there, it doesn't have much to do with the rest of the story. But yes, while Thriller Bark in itself was more excluded from the big picture of One Piece, but it still used a lot of build up to make future arcs more interesting. We got the introduction of Ryuma, and with that technically we learned a bit more about Zoro's ancestry. Zoro also got Shusui, which was a sword he used up until we just got into Wano. Then also we first learned about Wano, we also learned about Kaido and that he defeated Moria many years ago while Moria was way stronger than he was now. Then that actually all of the Straw Hats were defeated once by Moria and he just kept them around because he was not even intimidated by them in any way. And if you think about it, yes, Moria had no reason to be intimidated by them, and because at the level they were at that moment, they could not defeat Moria. And with that, I can also proudly say Moria scales over Rob Lucci because Luffy managed to defeat him, even with a little bit of help from Usopp. But Moria is not in that way. The only way Luffy managed to defeat Moria was with a form that I personally still think is one of the best forms we ever saw in the entirety of One Piece. Nightmare Luffy. Absorbing over 100 shadows and then getting all of their powers and changing into that almost Gear 4-like form just made Luffy completely busted. And when I say almost Gear 4-like, I also mean Boutman, and Nightmare Luffy against Boutman would probably be an interesting battle. They were so far apart in the chapter-wise department from One Piece, but I still think that they are relative in strength. What do you think? Would Nightmare Luffy be capable of defeating Doflamingo, or would he struggle with that? Because a lot of stuff with Moria gets downplayed because he's a bit goofy and has this attitude of other people do stuff for me, but he's still a great character. The entire theme of a pirate being broken because all of his comrades died. Moria went through a lot of similar things as Luffy did. After Luffy saw Ace's death at Marineford, he was probably going through the exact same things and the exact same heartbreak that Moria went through when all of his Nakama got killed by Kaido. But the difference is, Moria's Nakama were actually dead. All of them. Luffy may have lost one of his most important people, his brother, but he still had all of his friends, his Nakama, the Straw Hat Pirates. So he still had a saving net to save him from falling down. Meanwhile, Moria was left all by himself, and only after he went through all of that heartbreak, that sorrow and that depression, he went on to the West Blue, found himself some new comrades in the form of Absalom, Hawkback, and also a daughter he could adopt in Perona. He found these 3 people and formed a new crew, but he never really allowed himself to actually form a relationship with them at the first stage. But later down the line, he connected more and more with them, which we saw actually later down the line when Moria stopped acting selfish and lazy, when Absalom disappeared over the time skip and then was found dead in the area with Blackbeard. Moria was willing to fight Blackbeard to get Absalom back. He was ready to fight another Yonko for his comrades. Moria is a great character in that sense. And now, another thing that is very controversial, Moria's attack that broke a lot of the Thriller Bark is comparable to the damage that Garp's Galaxy Impact did. The only difference is that Moria actually had to punch the thing, while Garp could just punch the air. So there is still a difference in power here, but from the damage-wise, they are pretty similar. So Moria is a character many underestimate, and the Thriller Bark arc had a lot of great build up and also great story elements that got further fleshed out by the next arcs and stuff that happened in the future. And I just think it's worthy to be in my top 5, and I might be slightly biased because of my entire what if scenario that I'm working on. Now, place 4. This is a more common appearance in the top 5 arcs. It's the Alabaster arc. The Alabaster saga was our first real saga. East Blue was great, but it was more not episodic, but in a way that all the arcs were the different story parts. And Alabaster was the culmination of all the different arcs we went through in the Alabaster saga. We got Whiskey Peak, we got Reverse Mountain before that even, we got the quasi-Elbaf arc, which was Little Garden, we got Drum Island, and we got all these different things happening for Alabaster. And in the end, it all worked together to build this perfect fight that we had against Crocodile. Even though there also were its problems there with not as many deaths as we might think, even though the people with Hyota and the other people who drank the hero's water died, and there were minor deaths and stuff like that. But there could have been bigger impacts, like for example Pell, but we don't need to talk about it in that sense. Alabaster had great things. We had Vivi as technically the newest Straw Hat at that point. We also had Chopper. We saw many new characters for the first time as real Straw Hats. And also had the whole experience with Robin and Luffy saving Robin from wanting to die, because this all started during this arc. And I just believe Alabaster was the first sign that One Piece is actually going into greatness. East Blue was great, and if you don't like One Piece after the Arlong arc, I feel like it might not be for you, but for me, while I already liked it, I feel like Alabaster was the point where I noticed One Piece is much greater than I at first anticipated. I love the story, and Alabaster just proved it more and more that the world is big. We learned about the ancient weapons in this arc already. We met Robin, who is one of the only characters capable of reading about the ancient history. All these things make me, a history nerd, a lore nerd, just gush with excitement, and I feel like that's why Alabaster is in the 4th place for me. And 3rd place is another one that some people might have lower, maybe even higher. It's a very controversial arc, I think, because it's the Whole Cake Island arc. Whole Cake is one of the Giga arcs that came directly after Zoe and Dressrosa, so we were already in a drought of different places, and the fantastical gourmet country that just Whole Cake Island is had so much to offer, with all of the food shenanigans, this very weird and wacky forest, all these Charlotte family children that had these different devil fruit powers. It was a very much a different approach to a big arc compared to how Dressrosa worked, because in Dressrosa we were very focused on this small part from Doflamingo's crew. It was only a small group of people. Meanwhile, in Whole Cake Island we had hundreds of characters fighting, and while not everybody of them was relevant, it still offered a very big picture of what Big Mom really is capable of. Then we had the fight against Katakuri, which still stands as one of the best battles in One Piece history, because we first saw Luffy use Future Sight and how he developed. We also instantly got respect for Katakuri after he hurt himself because of the ambush from Flampe. All these things in Whole Cake Island worked well together to form a very great arc. It was also a great introduction to our first encounter and our first personal battle following the Straw Hats against one of the Emperors of the Sea. Because in Whole Cake Island, the Straw Hat Pirates could do nothing but run away from Big Mom. That was how much of a threat she was. We couldn't do anything to her. She was on her fruit rampage and she got stronger and stronger and stronger, and Luffy and the others, well, Luffy was also occupied with Katakuri, but everybody else could just run away. They were not capable of doing anything at that moment. So we feared her. We knew that this Emperor of the Sea was a threat. And then 1 arc later, she already got defeated. That is one of my downsides with the Wano arc in general as well. I might make an entire video about this, but I feel like the characters in Wano grew way too fast. It was only a few weeks that Luffy spent in Wano, but he went from being one-shotted by Kaido to being able to defeat him. So it's a bit of an interesting experience. But that's my opinion about Whole Cake Island. how do you feel about the entire thing with Big Mom? Do you think Cold King Island was a nice representation of everything? And I also love Sanji, so a Sanji-centric arc was also just another push for me to put it into the top 5. And now, actually, my last 2 arcs are pre-time skip. The pre-time skip has a lot of great arcs that are almost forgotten, because they were so long ago. But these 2 are actually arcs that many people still talk highly about, and it's the same for me. My number 1 arc is... Wait, I got you there. My number 2 arc comes first. Enies Lobby is my number 2 arc. Enies Lobby is not directly after Alabaster. It actually has a lot of stuff before that as well, but we saw that Robin had gone through a lot of stuff. We learned about her past. We also learned about Lucci's past. Lucci is still relevant and a fan favorite character. How strong he is might also be a topic for another video. But all these things were great. And looking at Enies Lobby, Destroyed Pirates actually lost. The only reason we won was that Luffy broke past his limit only because he heard Usopp's voice. And while at the moment in the post-time skip era I'm not the biggest Usopp fan, pre-time skip I thought he was a great character, and him being there to support Luffy after the big fight they just had on Water 7, I feel like that was a very good thing to round everything up and give this friendship the whole make-up story that they needed to have. And Enies Lobby also works well with the thriller bark thing I had in the 5th place. Because, remember this? Enies Lobby was just the arc before thriller bark. There's nothing in between there. And Enies Lobby was the point where Robin said, I want to live. And she joined the Straw Hats for real this time and was ready to work together with them and die together with them. And her being ready to die is one of the biggest things you could give your crew. And it's not that just I say it. Robin was ready to die in the Thriller Bark arc, when they didn't have their shadows and the sun went up and all of them almost turned into dust. Robin was okay with it. She thought, I finally found people who care about me. I finally found people who are willing to die for me, so I am ready to die for them. That's why I think Thriller Bark arc is also a great arc. And it connects with Enies Lobby as well. We had all of the CP9 fights, which was basically the biggest fight Nami had so far, which is great to see. Then Zoro against Kaku is still a dynamic we love. Jabura, I'm kind of sad that he, for example, isn't on Egghead right now, because he is supposed to be the monster CP9 trio, right? We have Lucci as Luffy's equivalent, we have Kaku as Zoro's equivalent, and Jabura is basically Sanji's equivalent, so why is he not here? It's a bit of a letdown, but we are fine with those things as well. And I mean, he is Robin's brother, so we would love to see more about him as well, because Robin's family is always interesting to see stuff. It was a very interesting dynamic to have her brother as one of her executioners or just people who are guarding her. I feel like this was a very brave thing that Oda could implement in the Enies Lobby arc. This entire conflict of siblings with Nico Jabra and Nico Robin, it was just masterclass. And then we come to my number 1 arc in all of One Piece. It's very basic, don't judge me for it. In my opinion, the Marineford arc is the best arc One Piece had so far. Wano was great, but the problem with Wano is it had too many big ups and way too many big downs. And Marineford didn't have all of that. Yes, I am not a big fan of Ace turning around because Sakazuki did this whole "you're dead" joke and Ace was just angered by that, but it still works. And Ace, I mean, in the end, I don't care about him that much. We did not spend too much time with him, and his death gave Luffy that much character development that we needed. We saw a lot of the big people for the first time. Oda himself apparently stated that Garp was the strongest person in Marineford. I personally doubt that, and I only saw people say Oda stated that, but I never saw those people backing it up with an actual quote from Oda or some sort of source. So I'm not sure if it's just another of these things that people say Oda said, but Oda never actually said. So in my opinion, Akainu was the strongest person in Marineford. Sengoku might have been a fleet admiral, but he was already getting up there in the age. And while age is not the thing that determines a person's power in One Piece, I still feel that Akainu was the strongest person in Marineford until the point where Shanks arrived, and Shanks was stronger than Akainu. But that's a topic for another discussion as well. There are so many things we can talk about in the future with One Piece also going on a month-long break. what am I going to do without One Piece? But Marineford had all these great battles. We saw our first and also our second mythological Zoan in the Phoenix Zoan from Marco and the Daibutsu or Buddha Zoan from Sengoku. It's just incredible what Marineford had to offer. We also saw Mihawk attack and casually slide through this glacier. All these things just make Marineford great. Then we had the thing with Blackbeard and him getting the devil fruit power from Brightbeard. All these things are stuff that we never expected, and I think that all of this together makes Marineford the greatest arc of One Piece we had so far. Will Egghead surpass that? I feel like Egghead is actually on a good path to maybe become my new #1 because we're seeing so many different things and it's still going on for quite a long time. So what's your opinion? How do your top 5 arcs look? Please share that with me in the comments. And if you want to see other videos in a similar fashion like this, please mention that in the comments as well. All that's left to say from me is stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. Pyro out. Bye!